With One Piece spanning for over 1,000 episodes, and Oda being the kind of genius that he is when it comes to writing emotionally charged stories, then it comes as no surprise that One Piece is filled with a bunch of insanely satisfying moments. And let me warn you, things are gonna get wild, emotional, and maybe, just maybe, make you jump out of your chair in pure hype when remembering these moments. Now listen, there are punches in anime, and then there's that punch of Luffy against St. Charloss. You see, this wasn't just Luffy punching a celestial dragon, this was Luffy punching the literal embodiment of generational entitlement. I mean, think about it. This guy shoots a fishman slave in a literal slave auction, tries to buy Cammy like she's a piece of furniture, and laughs in the most insanely irritating way possible. And then, well, Luffy just sends him straight back to the manga. I'll be honest, there's no way this guy did not have to see a dentist after that. Luffy doesn't hesitate, doesn't shout, doesn't monologue, just rearranges this man's entire dental record in one shot. And the fans jumping out of their seats in pure excitement. And now hear me out. You thought the punch on Charloss was satisfying? Think again, because Saturn, that guy deserved that punch he got from Kuma even more. The tension was building up for literally years. All the things Saturn did to Kuma and the people he loved have been accumulating. The fact that Kuma literally traveled half the world to deliver that punch makes things even more insane. He's one of the Gorosei, one of the literal demons running the world government. And for the longest time, we thought no one could touch these guys. But then comes Kuma and punches him so hard that, well, as a viewer, you've got no option left other than to stand up and simply applaud both Kuma and Oda for this masterpiece of a scene he delivered. But since we started with legendary punches that are simply so satisfying to witness, let's head back a bit to Bellamy, the walking example of arrogance. This guy thought mocking dreams made him look cool. He laughed in Luffy's face, dismissed Skypiea like it was some fairy tale bedtime story, and in a classic bully fashion, he hit both Luffy and Zoro while they just refused to fight back. But when Luffy was actually willing to fight, oh, he wasn't playing games. He folded Bellamy with a single punch, and the crowd, it went dead silent. The guy Bellamy kept asking if he, quote, even knows how to throw a punch, ended up being so much stronger than him that one single punch was enough to put him to sleep on the spot, literally. But if you thought a punch was the only way Luffy could dominate a situation, well, let me take you to Whole Cake Island, where Luffy showed he is a master of rage bait and trash talk as well. Luffy is trapped inside Montdoor's book. Big Mom's giggling like she's already won. Sanji's off crying somewhere, the Straw Hats are split, and the whole Charlotte family is partying like it's their victory parade. And then Luffy tells Big Mom, in her face actually, that they're coming back stronger, that her plans are already doomed, that she'll never have Sanji's loyalty, that her excuses for not becoming Pirate Queen are simply excuses. And well, let's just say the Big Mom was indeed pissed to hear all these. And now we get to the disrespect king himself, Trafalgar D. Waterlaw. This man doesn't need to scream. Damn, he doesn't even need to talk. He just needs his fingers, or better put, one of them. And by that, I mean the finger that says screw you in every language. So there he is, on the ground, beaten and bleeding, while Doflamingo tries to convince him to perform the ageless surgery on him. But after everything Doflamingo did to Law and those he loved, yeah, there's no way he would comply. And the result? No fear, no hesitation, just one finger telling Doflamingo that, well, Law is not messing around, to say the least. Okay, that Law moment was pretty much known, no question. But this next one is among the most underrated ones. You ever see a crew so united, so done with nonsense, that their walk alone feels like a declaration of war? That's exactly what happened when the Straw Hats marched toward Franky's house. Let me remind you what happened. Usopp just got beat up and had the money of the crew stolen. Seeing him crying on the ground because he disappointed the crew, well, Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro knew someone needed to pay for this. The door opens, and well, the Franky family doesn't know what hit them. Let's just put it that way. Mess with one Straw Hat, and you get the entire crew banging on your door. But if you thought that walk was cold, oh, wait until we talk about Arlong Park. Now this was different, because this was the first real time we saw Luffy carry not just the crew, but someone else's pain. You see, Nami had been suffering in silence, stuck under Arlong's control. And then, in one of the most chilling moments in early One Piece, she finally breaks. She even stabs herself in the arm in the place where Arlong's tattoo was, after she asks Luffy for help, and he gives her the Straw Hat. Well, the sequence that followed gave me literal goosebumps. Even after all these years, just thinking of that moment, I still get chills. And now let's talk about one of the coldest, most badass moments in the history of anime entrances, Whole Cake Island. Luffy, he sees Katakuri arriving in the ship along with his sister through the mirror world. Without wasting a second, he drags both Katakuri and Brule back into the mirror world in order to fight Katakuri without restraints and without having to worry if his crewmates will get hurt. And on top of that, he smashes the mirror leading back to his ship. He does not hesitate making no way back. I mean, at this point, he's telling Katakuri, I'm not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in here with me. That level of confidence, that raw, uncut energy, insane! And don't lie, when that mirror shattered, you felt it in your soul as well. Same way I felt it too. And speaking of going down, or rather not going down, let me introduce you to Whitebeard. You see, this weak, old, sick man barely being able to hold his own on his chair, well, let's just say this guy's not so weak after all. In fact, he is the man, the myth, the legend. This guy gets stabbed by his own son, shot by cannons, fried by magma, sliced, stabbed again, has half of his face burnt off, and he keeps on going. During Marineford, when the world was literally collapsing, Whitebeard stood like a mountain, bleeding, grunting, but never falling. And when I say never falling, I mean it literally. Even after his death, the guy died standing. Everyone present just froze. The guy had more aura while being dead than guys can even dream of having in their best moments. And allow me to quote the narrator as well. His back never received a wound from running away from battle. If that's not the most satisfying way to wave off goodbye to a character, then I don't know what is. But if you ever wondered what real courage looks like, allow me to present Jinbei. This man stared down Big Mom, a literal living catastrophe, and told her, I'm not scared of you. Just like that. Calm, firm, unbothered. You see, this wasn't some low-tier pirate trembling before a Yonko. This was the Knight of the Sea. And when Big Mom, in all her delusional glory, says, you dare defy me, Jinbei hits her with one of the most badass replies of all time. I'm joining the crew of the future Pirate King. There's no way I'm getting intimidated by a mere Yonko. And the best part? He didn't even flinch. Not once. As a matter of fact, if he had the slightest ounce of fear towards Big Mom, she would have sucked his life away from him. But he didn't, which proves the guy was not just faking it. He really just stood there and said, yeah, you ain't even that special, to be honest. The next moment is one taken from a movie, and all I'll say is that it matches Luffy perfectly. So picture this. Luffy's holding the freaking eternal log pose to Raftel. That's it. That's the ticket to the last island. He has his way to the One Piece, the shortcut to the greatest mystery in the world. And what does he do? He stares with this cold and angry stare, and he simply shatters it. That's the same thing that happened back in Sabaody when Usopp asked Rayleigh about where the One Piece is. And well, let's just say that Luffy was pissed with that. Same here with the log pose. Every pirate would kill for that thing. Blackbeard would sell his soul for it. The world government would burn cities just to get close to it. But Luffy says, nope, I'll find my own way. He doesn't want a shortcut. He doesn't want to follow anyone else's path. He wants adventure. He wants the freedom to fail, to explore, to discover. That moment isn't just satisfying, it's the essence of who Luffy is. But wait, if you thought Luffy was raw, hold on, because Zoro is about to humble the entire anime world with just 2 words. Nothing happened. Yeah, you already know. Thriller bark. Luffy's body is crushed. The crew's done. Kuma shows up with orders from the world government to eliminate everyone. And Zoro, he doesn't flinch. He offers his life in exchange for Luffy's. And then, just to make sure the weight of the moment is clear, Kuma makes him take all of Luffy's pain. It should have killed him in the state Zoro was already at. Anyone else would have died. But Zoro takes it all and stands there, covered in blood. Or is it blood now? Well, to be honest, upon researching that moment online, I stumbled upon the Chinese version of that moment, where for some reason, they decided to censor the blood and instead make it white. So, yeah, this doesn't really look better, let's just say that. I mean, if you saw this version of One Piece, you really call this moment with Zoro satisfying? Just standing there covered in this white substance? Yeah, I don't think so. But if you thought Zoro was the only one dropping bangers, let's take a second to appreciate Sanji's coldest line to date. Thank you, I needed a light. This guy was just electrocuted with approximately 1 million volts. And what does he do? Decides to aura farm even more in front of the guy who literally fried him alive. He saved his friends and also managed to piss off the main villain even more. Yeah, this was satisfying, all right. But now let's flip back to Zoro. And this one's criminally underrated. Enies Lobby. Zoro's facing Kaku. Swords flying, giraffe necks spinning around the place, and Zoro finally gets serious. He whips out Asura. 3 heads, 9 swords, literal demon energy. And the final blow? Brutal, precise, clean. Kaku's down, and Zoro, well, he had to aura farm, right? So without even looking at him, you're fired. And now, it's time to talk about the moment Luffy finally finally steps back in the ring with someone who once made him look like a fly on the windshield. Kizaru, Egghead Island, years after Sabaody, years after watching his crew get split apart like kids being bullied by someone 10 years older than them. And now, Luffy's back with Gear 5 with advanced Conqueror's Haki. With the weight of 2 years of grinding, pain, and growth behind him after numerous highly difficult battles, he is now a Yonko. And what happens? Kizaru, the seemingly untouchable Lightspeed Admiral, tries to do his usual "I'm too fast to be hit" nonsense, and Luffy just deletes it. The moment he lays his eyes on him, it's instant attack, and he can keep up with him and his clones. Luffy's now playing with the big boys, and let's just say this moment felt as satisfying as it gets. Now let's talk about Luffy versus the Oars-type giant in Wano. The satisfying moment here was not the fact that this giant was considered an extremely powerful character for Wano standards, nor that he said or did something annoying and Luffy taught him a lesson. You see, this giant is supposed to be around as strong as Oars, and if you recall, it took a lot of effort from the Straw Hats to finally defeat him in the end. And what did Luffy do when he saw this giant in Wano? It literally didn't take him more than a few seconds to defeat him. One punch from Gear 4 was all it took to showcase how far the Straw Hats have come since early arcs of the show. And if I'm being honest, the way they portrayed this scene was as satisfying as it gets. Plus, the animation, as insane as it can be. But if you thought the satisfying moments in Wano stopped there, well, not quite. Next, we gotta talk about the time food wasters got wasted. At least, that's what the title of the official YouTube channel of Crunchyroll used when posting this video. You see, Orochi's men are shoving food into their mouths, laughing, wasting meat, while starving citizens in Wano literally can't feed their kids. And then Zoro and Luffy just could not take it anymore. And especially Luffy's punch? Oh man, was that satisfying. Okay, well, maybe not for this guy's spine, to be honest, since I'm pretty sure he was left paralyzed after that one. Now, let's bring it back to the moment where Luffy faces the PX5 after the time skip, aka the Pacifista clones of Kuma that once terrorized the Straw Hats. Remember Sabaody? Yeah, traumatizing. One Pacifista was enough to nearly wipe them all out. Flash forward to after the time skip, the gang's reunited, older, stronger, and more ready than ever. And well, let's just say that the Marines, on the other hand, aren't ready. The PX5 shows up like he's about to destroy them, except Luffy doesn't even flinch. He just blitzes this thing, and with one punch, the PX5 is down. And what makes it even better? Everyone watching is shook. Marines, bystanders, us watching this, everyone. I mean, that was disrespectful, right? And well, speaking of disrespect, can we please talk about Sanji finally fighting back against his family? The moment I'm referring to is, of course, the pinnacle of Sanji versus Germa 66, aka Sanji fighting against his dad. Here, even though he doesn't want to admit it, Judge understood that he was wrong about Sanji. He grew up to become exceptionally strong enough to fight against him even without a sword, just his kicks. And well, let's just say that Sanji fighting back was pure satisfaction. But if you want to talk about real boss fights, let's go back to one of the coldest, most desperate duels in all of One Piece, Luffy versus Lucci at Eni's lobby. I'm sure you remember that. Luffy is seemingly defeated after taking attack after attack head on, but Luffy's gone insane. Even Lucci can't believe what he's witnessing right now. And what came after? Enough to make a grown adult shiver and goosebumps. He's throwing punches with blood in his teeth, and when he lands that final jet Gatling, oh bro, you feel it in your bones. Lucci tries to stay on his feet, but it's too late. This attack of Luffy was decisive. Lucci collapses, and Luffy has achieved one of the most legendary victories in anime history. So check this out. We've just seen Luffy beat Lucci back in Eni's lobby, but fast forward to Egghead, and Lucci's back, stronger, smoother, with an awakened devil fruit. He's looking like he's upgraded to the deluxe government murder cat package. And you're probably thinking, okay, maybe he stands a chance this time. Wrong, dead wrong, actually, because Luffy upgraded probably twice as much as Lucci by now. Luffy doesn't even break a sweat. The moment he goes into 5th gear, you can literally see the fear in Lucci's eyes when this literal demon is flying towards him. The moment they clash, it becomes embarrassingly clear who's in charge now. And Lucci, he cannot believe he's about to get wiped out once again. First time he underestimated Luffy, but now he has no chance no matter what he does. The way Luffy clowns on him is so disrespectful, so one-sided, it's actually hilarious. Like, this isn't even a rematch. Honestly, it's just pure satisfaction for the fans. But if you want that heavy, dramatic dramatic satisfaction, let's rewind to Dressrosa. Luffy versus Doflamingo. This fight was filled with goosebump moments, not just because of what Dofi did to Law, and not just because he turned an entire country into puppets and slaves, but because Doflamingo was everything Luffy stood against. Arrogant, entitled, cruel, using people for his own benefit, using his devil fruit to literally enslave people and use him with his threats. And for the longest time, he played the game like a god. But when Luffy goes Gear 4, things were about to get satisfying. And the most satisfying part, Dofi making fun of him before Luffy goes off and starts throwing Doflamingo around. And when that final punch lands and Dofi's glasses shatter, pure satisfaction once again. But since we've started with Dressrosa now, another moment that felt as satisfying as it gets was Zoro cutting Pica. And no, I don't mean like a little cut. I mean cutting a literal mountain in half. Because this man Pica thought he was untouchable. And if we're being honest, he kind of did seem untouchable too. Hiding inside a giant stone titan body, towering over the battlefield like he was invincible. But Zoro sees a mountain-sized enemy and decides, you know what, there's nothing I cannot cut, so I might as well cut this guy too. Especially since, you know, Pica belongs in the category of people Zoro despises for some reason. Again, not my fault. Oda's responsible for this. But now let's take a moment to appreciate one of the coolest firsts in the series, the debut of Red Hawk. You remember that, right? Luffy versus Hody Jones. Fishman Island, underwater chaos. And suddenly, Luffy's arm catches fire like he's channeling Ace himself. And for a moment, just a moment, it's like his brother is right there with him. The flames burst from his fist, and he lands a punch so explosive, so unexpected, that the ocean practically flinched. And Hody's not just hurt, he's sent flying. And what's even more satisfying is the fact that this was supposed to be his turf, aka his home field advantage. And Luffy just dismantled it with one fiery punch. Luffy manages to combine a move that brought Ace back, and along with it, chills for everyone watching the scene, along with pure satisfaction that Hody Jones finally got what he deserved. But now let's turn back the clock one more time to the moment Shanks walked onto Whitebeard's ship like he owned it. I mean, think about this. Whitebeard's crew, terrifying, monsters, legends. And then here comes Shanks, cool as it goes, stepping onto the deck with a bottle of sake and enough Haki to make the atmosphere break into pieces. Literally. From the moment Shanks stepped onto that ship, everyone who knew he was the real deal showed the respect he commanded. And to imagine that Shanks' Haki was enough to make half of the crew there faint shows what a badass he really is. And Shanks' clashing with Whitebeard, even more satisfying than that. Not only the sky cracks, we also see a glimpse of Whitebeard's true strength. A man that up until that point thought he was severely weakened, as all he saw of him was just an old man sitting on his chair being administered medicines. And the moment we all realized we were wrong about him. Satisfying to say the least. The clash of Conqueror's Haki the two men displayed was truly insane. So let's rewind to where a king's presence was first truly felt. Fishman Island. Luffy, fresh off the time skip, stands in front of a crowd of thousands of hostile new fishmen pirates. They're ready to pounce, teeth bared, weapons drawn, and Luffy, he doesn't even fade because he knows his next move will leave everybody for dead. And what does he do? He simply flexes. He drops a Conqueror's Haki and people start falling around him like he dropped a nuke. We're talking half of the enemy forces simply collapse. And the best part, Luffy doesn't even look impressed with himself. He's like, yeah, that's what happens now. That moment, pure satisfaction. Luffy is now capable of using one of the best feats in the world of One Piece, something obtainable only by a select few in the entire world. But if you want gritty, intense, old school vibes, then we need to talk about Luffy versus Crocodile, the first major villain that really pushed him to his limit. Crocodile wasn't just strong, he was untouchable. Literally, Sandman mode, Logia powers, fighting on his terrain that he has the elemental advantage, underground scheming, I mean, it's the whole package. Add years more experience under his belt, and even access to both observation and armament Haki, not to mention the entire army he has at his disposal. Yeah, Luffy defeating him seemed like an impossible task. Until, well, it didn't. But before that, it took a whole lot of effort and failures, multiple times. Buried, poisoned, dried up like beef jerky, but he doesn't quit. He coats his fists in blood and water, punches through the sand, and lands the cleanest uppercut in Alabasta history. And when Crocodile goes flying and Alabasta is finally free, this feels as satisfying as it gets. But hey, speaking of slicing through impossible odds, all while staying in the same arc, let's give some respect to Zoro versus Des Bones, aka Mr. One, the man made of literal blades. You can't cut him, or at least you shouldn't be able to cut him. But Zoro, he's faced with his first real challenge, finally putting it to the test. With the right technique and swordsmanship, there should be nothing nothing in this world he cannot cut. So, cutting through some steel blades, yeah, this should be step number 1. He's bleeding, almost dying, barely standing, and he's still determined to do it. This entire fight is Zoro discovering the line between strength and spirit, and the moment he finally feels it, the moment he gets a hang of it, he lands that final strike. He doesn't just cut his opponent, aka Daz, he cuts steel. He overcomes his limits and achieves a new milestone. The sheer buildup, the philosophy, the pain, it all climaxes in that one slash. And Zoro, he just took the first step into being able to cut anything in the world. And let me just say, it felt satisfying. And now we hit that moment. I think you already know the one. Robin's scream, "I want to live." Only 4 words that, well, after all the things she went through and wishing she just dies, she finally confesses she wants to live. For the first time in her life, Robin stopped running and finally embraced and accepted her friends, entrusting them to save her. She had been hunted, betrayed, discarded like trash by everyone she had trusted. But the Straw Hats, they didn't abandon her. They declared war on the entire world for her. And in the middle of all that chaos, with her back against the wall, Robin finally admits it. She doesn't want to die. She wants to live. And what came after? Even more peak than that. Soga King burning the flag like a badass, and when Spandam tells Luffy that they will not make it alive after this, well, Luffy wanted to bet on top of it they would. Pure chills. But speaking of pure chills, this one had to be included as well. The Ox Bell. When Luffy rings the golden bell in Skypiea, it's not just a satisfying moment, it's straight up liberation. You see, back on the Blue Sea, Mont Blanc Cricket had been ridiculed, laughed at, called insane for believing his ancestor's story about a city of gold in the sky. And while Luffy never knew him personally, he knew what it meant to believe in a dream that nobody else did. So when he finally defeats Enel and simultaneously rings the bell, the message is heard across the country, echoing through the heavens, so that somewhere miles below on the Blue Sea, Mont Blanc Cricket hears it. He knows he wasn't wrong. He knows the city was real, and all that ridicule washed away in a single sound. Click on this video next, where I'm letting luck decide on the strongest One Piece crew possible. Go on, check it out!